This is your year to ring in the deals and ring in the keys to your brand new ride during our Ring in the Savings event at Capital Ford. Like a new 2025 Ford F-250 Super Duty with 0% APR for 60 months. Or a new 2025 Ford Bronco Sport. Just $495 a month lease for 36 months with no money down. This is your year, so drive into 2026 the right way during our Ring in the Savings event at Capital Ford in Santa Fe. This is your year to ring in the deals and ring in the keys to your brand new ride during our Ring in the Savings event at Capital Ford. Like a new 2025 Ford F-250 Super Duty with 0% APR for 60 months. Or a new 2025 Ford Bronco Sport. Just $495 a month lease for 36 months with no money down. This is your year, so drive into 2026 the right way during our Ring in the Savings event at Capital Ford in Santa Fe.
Hey, welcome in to another live episode of the Pit Press. I'm your host tonight, Eric Moulton. Everyone joining in on a lovely Monday evening with co-host Mr. Ed Nunez, voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs and a Lobo fan since 1970. Ed, what's up, man? How are you?
Hey, you know what, Derek? Really well, man. Got to listen to some of the game on the way home from Silver City, and then I got to watch the tape game yesterday, and I really enjoyed that. And meanwhile, Western New Mexico is playing some of their best basketball since I've been the voice there. They're third in the conference, 16-4 and 9-3 in the Lone Star Conference. So it looks like they're going to go to the conference tournament, and that's something that's not happened since I've been the voice there. So unfortunately, I talked to Steve Davis today, and we won't be able to go. It's in Frisco, Texas, man. I wish we could. But, so, yeah, they're playing pretty well, and excited about covering them this year. It's been a while since we've had a winning season.
Yeah, we'll have to effort some of those guys. I know Eastern's having a pretty good season too, aren't they?
No, they are. They're ranked in the I think we should be ranked, I'll be honest with you, but they're not going to give Western New Mexico a lot. They have a winning culture, man. They don't. So, I think we should be in the top 25. Eastern New Mexico, I think, sitting at 18. So, yeah, the big kid from Highland, Jose Morillo, having a monster year, man, a monster season. And it's good. You know, I'm a Highland guy, man. I love to see him do well, except when it's against Western. But, yeah, he's a heck of a player and a great young man. God, I love that kid. He's a great, great young man.
Yeah, well, you can't sleep on New Mexico basketball these days, man.
No, you're right.
Lobos rolling, Eastern's rolling, Western's rolling. And the Lobos are rolling. They beat San Jose State on the road 90-80. Career night for Jake Hall, true freshman, 27 points. Goes 7 for 9 from deep. Also joining us on the show tonight, former Lobo, played for the Lobos back in 82 through 85, Mr. George Scott. George, how are you doing tonight? Thanks for joining.
Doing well. Hello, Eric. Ed, thanks for having me. Doing well. Happy to be here.
Ed, since Ed bothered you to join the show again, we're just going to start here, man. What was your overall impression of how the Lobos fared at San Jose State? I think going in, a lot of people were questioning Maybe this could be a potential trap game. Do the Lobos come out flat? But not necessarily what they played like. I thought San Jose State played fairly well, but what was your take?
Well, first of all, it's never a bother. I always enjoy talking to you guys. I enjoy talking Lobo football and basketball with you guys. So again, it is never a bother. But my take on the game, I also thought that the game potentially could have been a trap or a letdown game. We started out kind of slow, but we finished strong. Obviously, won the game by 10 points. So I was, again, pleasantly surprised that we played as well as we did Saturday, and also that we are playing as well as we have so far this entire season, considering we've got a brand new team, brand new coaching staff, brand new everything. So it's been fun to watch.
Ed, I'm going to kick over that question to you. Jake Hall goes for 27. Bouillon, another solid performance, double, 17 points. And I think he finished with, 10 rebounds. What was your take?
Following up on what George said, if you look inside the numbers of their, some of the numbers I looked at, offense, they're second in the conference at 81.5, and they're second in defense at 68.0, allowing. So those numbers are, indicate winning basketball, 80-70. So 90-80. I'm sorry. They were so offensively efficient. A 141.1 offensive efficiency rating, fourth highest ever in the Mountain West for the Mountain West Conference for UNM. They scored on 1.475 points per possession. Very offensively efficient. There was some talk about maybe their D didn't disrupt as much as it usually does. San Jose State only turned the ball over 5 times. Give them some credit. They made some shots. They had shot makers. They did. So some of the talk was UNM's defensive effort wasn't usually what it was. But Garland hit 24. He made some good shots, man. And, they made some good shots late in the clock. But if you look at the way George was talking, Hall, 27 points, 10 of 14 from the field, 7 of 9 from 3. Bouillon, 17 and 10. Alberry, I thought, played a very efficient game, attacked when he needed to. The downhill driver gets downhill, 14 and 5. Luke Hopt, again, the connector, 7 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. Antonio Chol, only 4, but I got to tell you this. I was encouraged that he took the ball to the hole twice. He drove to the rack, and that's something we've been saying that he needs to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I was pleased to see that. Uriah Tinette, 14 points, drew 6 fouls. They shot 48.3, from the field goal percentage, 37.5 from 3, 21 of 24 from the charity stripe. So I think as far as their efficiency offensively, you can't argue with that. And Jake Hall, I don't know that we can say enough about him. One of the leading scorers in the Mountain West Conference as a freshman. The shot fake, and the way I think Rick Thompson made it the point the other night when you had him on, Eric, about the way he reads screens. Not only that, when he's coming around the curl, he's always square. He reminds me of Bubba Jennings, man. Bubba Jennings was the greatest shooter I ever saw in New Mexico. Squaring up to the basket every single time. Squares up, shooting mechanics are so fundamental. He's not going to wow you again with the speed or athleticism, but that shot fake is so good. And when he's in a rhythm, he comes off curls. He comes off down picks. They're picking for him on the baseline, and they're looking for him. They're finding the shooter. So I don't think we can say enough about Jake Hall and his performance so far this season as a freshman.
I agree. Completely agree, Ed.
Let's stay right there, George. Just in terms of attacking the basket early, I think early on in that game, there was a pretty strong emphasis that these guys were going to attack the basket. Ed did mention that we saw that out of Chol a couple of times, which we rarely ever see, but I thought we saw that early. We saw it often. What did you think Coach Eric Owen's approach was there in the first half?
Well, I think it was a great idea. You can never go wrong when you are attacking the basket. To Ed's point, I was happy to see Chol driving to the basket. I've been on you guys' show a couple times, and we've all been saying the same thing about him. He is a big guy. He's 6'9". He's a 6'9" jump shooter. And I've been wondering, why wouldn't he go to the basket? I mean, he is a legit 6'9". I've had a chance to go to practice a couple times, and I've gone to some of the football games, and I was talking to the players on the sidelines, and he's got a good 3 inches on me. I'm 6'6", and he towers over me. So for him to be out there casting jump shots instead of going to the basket, I think it's a waste of his height. So I was glad to see him using that size, using that length, going to the basket, because if push comes to shove, if you miss it, chances are if the shot doesn't go in, he's going to get the rebound because he's so much bigger than the guy that's guarding him. So I was very happy to see that. And hopefully going forward, he will continue to drive to the basket to take advantage of that 6'9" frame of his.
Yeah. One guy I want to focus on next, Ed, I'm going to hand this question to you, or maybe just the next topic. But one guy that doesn't get enough praise, man, and we talk about it on every show, every podcast, but Luke Hopt. Matt, I don't know, I'm looking at the stat sheet now. Luke Hopt finished with 7 total points, but listen to the rest of his stat sheet. He goes 1 for 4 from field goal, 7 points, 8 defensive rebounds, right? He had 4 steals and 4 assists. Talk about your typical, like the definition, true definition of a glue guy. How much has Luke Hopt meant to this team as they've kind of hit their stride midway through the conference season?
Eric Olin made it a point to get him here, and they call him the connector, that connector guy. He's not going to, again, he doesn't surprise, wow you with, like, look at that first step, or look at that, 3-point stroke. It's all the other things that he does. Well, he does them all well. He passes the ball well. He's going to rebound the ball well. He's going to hit a 3 if he's open. He's going to hit a 3. He's going to back his guy in at that left hand. He'll make a post shot. He can post up. But I think the other thing I like about him and the way they pass the ball as a team, he has a good shot. Boom, one more swing pass. Uriah Tenet has a better one. Jake Hall has a better one. He's always looking to make that extra pass, or fake one to make one. Fake the pass, drive the lane, and then kick it out again. So I think the way that they played as a team, and George can speak. George played with some, George, you played with Kelvin Scarborough and Phil Smith. You played with Hunter. You played with some fantastic players here at the University of New Mexico, and you were one of them too. Now, this team is not going to wow you. You mentioned Luke Hopt. That guy, God, I love to watch him play because he makes the right plays, the right reads. That's why Coach Olin brought a lot of these guys in and to run his system. Not a lot of individuality. It's a team thing. That guy's so important to what they do. And then the team defense. He's a team defender, not a one-on-one, the guy who's going to steal the ball. Active hands, will make a steal, throw the ball for an assist, or lay it up. He does so many things for UNM. Again, the connector, they're missing their other connector in Chris Howell. But Luke Hopt has played so well these last couple of games. He can't be overlooked if you know the game. Derek, you won a championship, man, at Capital. You know the game very well. George Scott, your resume speaks for itself, man. It's a pleasure to watch this team because, again, last year's team had their individual stars with Dent and Nelly. And you know what? The argument was last week that this team could beat last year's team. I appreciate any winning team, man. Everybody has their own way of winning, right? Of course, I mean, winning is winning, man. And you know what? This team, of course, is very fun to watch. But I appreciated Donnie's play and making plays at the rim. Remember that play against New Mexico State, which was on ESPN? ESPN top 50. I still don't know how the heck he made that shot. So I appreciated Nelly. I appreciated True. I appreciated that team too. So I think we should appreciate different ways to win. But this team here, and Eric, I didn't mean to get off topic, but Luke Hopt, every time I see him, I'm like, dang, God, look at the smart Eric. You played on a championship team, man. You were that Mark Centini told me. You're one of them glue guys, man, and you hit threes, made free throws. Mark Centini told me what a good player you were, man. So when I see a guy like Luke Hopt, man, I got a big smile because I'm like, that guy's that makes the – how many times does he make the right play? A couple of games ago, he traveled a couple of times and turned the ball over, which is rare for him. So when he makes the right play probably about 90% of the time that I see.
George, I'm going to hand you the same question, but I'm going to throw a little twist on it. I mean, how important of a role is Luke Hopt playing right now within the offense and even on the defensive side? He's got the length, he's got the frame to defend. But can you remember back in your playing days in 82 to 85 with UNM having that type of player? Can you think of maybe who that person might have been on those teams?
Absolutely, and I'm so glad you asked me that. And Ed, I'm gonna throw out a name that you're gonna recognize right away. Who Luke reminds me of? Alan Delinsky.
Yeah.
Alan Delinsky was the guy, 6'5" out of California. He didn't do anything great, but he did a lot of things well, just like Luke. I was telling someone the other day, Luke reminds me of a baseball utility player. He's a guy that can play first, second, third base. You can throw him in the outfield. He is a utility guy. Every team needs that because every team doesn't need a Hunter Green or a Kelvin Scarborough. Every team needs a Luke Hopt and an Alan Delinsky as the glue, the connector. Those guys are very important. And as far as I'm concerned, he is one of the most important players on this team as far as connecting and just doing what it takes to be done for this team to succeed, because he's not going to get you 25 points. He's not going to get you 15 rebounds or 12 assists, but he's going to be a stat sheet stuffer. He's going to get you 10 points, 5 or 6 rebounds, 3 or 4 assists, 2 or 3 steals. Classic stat sheet stuffer, and every team needs that.
And talk about some of the intangibles that he might carry too, right? Like the senior leadership, the steady hand, the confidence on the floor, the guy that's going to think a little bit slower in terms of the game slowing down for him, because you see Tannett get out there at times and he feels like a little rushed. He kind of forcing some things, but you get Luke Hopt bringing up the ball. He has, like he's going to take care of it and kind of get them in their set. So, I really like that story there, George. But I do want to stay right there. I do want to talk about Uriah Tannett's contribution, another true freshman. This guy's just continuing to deliver off the bench, 14 points. He goes, looking at his stat line here, he goes 3 of 5 from the field, 2 for 3 from the 3-point line. And when we were watching this game, San Jose State had to have played one of their better games of the year, man. I'm not going to take any credit away from them. I thought they played well. UNM defended well. They contested a lot of shots, but San Jose State just punched back, right? But every time they punched back, it felt like UNM had an answer. One of those answers was Uriah Tannett. He hit some big threes there in the second half. He was able to get to the rim. He was able to get to the free throw line too and finish. Ed, what did you think of Uriah Tannett's play?
He's another guy that's been very consistent. And, if you're the opposing coach, you're looking at the guard size and you're thinking, hey, man, we could take advantage of that guy. We should be able to post him up, or he's small. We should be able to take advantage of him defensively and have been able to. He's been very efficient. He's got some athleticism. I think he could still be better at the mid-range. There's times he gets in the paint. Those should be money. As high as that kid jumps, take a little bit off that shot, and that'll be money. Scores on fast breaks, steals the ball. Again, Robert Portnoy told me this in a practice. He said in practice one time there was a missed free throw. He came crashing in the lane and yanked it down, man, with 2 hands. So that kind of told me what an athlete he was, and we've seen that. So I think again the guard play from New Mexico with Albury and Hopt and Tannett has been very, very, very good. It's been good all season long. And Tannett off of the bench, freshman averaging double figures, has been a big boost for UNM. Off the bench, so you can count on that guy. He's going to give you numbers, man. He's going to like George said about Hopt, he's going to fill up the stat sheet and make plays and make smart plays. And I think that's one of there's that skip pass that they did a lot on Saturday. But I think to your point too, and George's point, you've got 3 guys that can facilitate the offense. You've got Albury, you've got Tannett, you've got Hopt, and Chris Howell is out. There's another facilitator there. And it's going to be interesting to see if he does come back, how do they split those minutes up? That's a problem Coach Olin would like to have, but right now they're rolling. They're rolling right now, but there's 3 facilitators on the offense right there, and Tannett being one of them as well. And can't say enough about his play, Eric. I think he's been he's been fantastic again. It's hard to believe that him and Jake Hall are only freshmen, man. They don't play like freshmen at all.
Hey, George, I want to focus on the backcourt matchup in this game, right? Like, obviously, we know what UNM brings. They're pretty deep at the guard position. But San Jose State, right? Like, I think coming into this matchup, Kobe Garland was one of the guys that UNM was going to have to key on. And they tried their best to stop him, but that dude was just all over the floor. He finished with 24 points. But then his sidekick, Jermaine Washington, came into the game and really took over there in the second half. He had 0 points in the first half and ended up finishing the game with 18. Talk about this guard matchup and what you were able to kind of see from both sides.
Well, I think their guards were ready for us. They had their biggest crowd of the season, from what I heard or read in the paper. They were up for the challenge, but eventually our guys won out. We've got pretty good guards ourselves. As I recall, Uriah was scoreless at halftime, I think, and then he put up 14 points in the second half alone. But yeah, our guys rose to the challenge and were able to overcome their guards, because I think their guards played way over their heads because they were ready for New Mexico. I mean, we have a good team. Everyone around the conference knows who we are, and they were ready for us. They came out early, struck us often, but we weathered the storm, and in the end, the cream rose to the top, and we were fortunate to get the victory, thanks in large part to Uriah's 14 second half points. That's just crazy. That's unheard of for a freshman. You don't see stuff like that. That's something a senior does. So I'm a huge fan of his, and I'm just really looking forward to continuing watching him play the rest of the season.
Yeah, talking about the freshmen again, the trio delivered. Right, here's a stat that I found courtesy of Steve Kirkland, UNM basketball SID. But the three freshmen, Hall, Bouillon, Tannette, all scored in double figures just one game over the first 18 contests, which was the Nebraska game. But in that game against San Jose State marked the fourth straight game that has happened. I think we've beat this dead horse multiple times, but I mean, the true freshman is what we're seeing this year is kind of unprecedented. Just the amount of production that we're getting out of them. But Jake Hall, he goes back-to-back weeks for Mountain West Freshman of the Year. I mean, do you recall a UNM freshman ever having this type of season? Not just the trio, but Jake Hall specifically?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, off the top of my head, of course, you got to start with Kenny Thomas. Kenny was great from day one. But other than that, I really can't think of any freshman that played this well this early. As people might recall, Hunter and Scar didn't even play as freshmen. They physically were not ready. Now, they started as sophomores, but Jake Hall and Uriah Tennant and obviously 23-year-old Bouillon, those guys are way ahead of where Hunter and Scar were as freshmen, and it's just been a real pleasure watching those guys play. It just freaks me out that they are this advanced at such a young age. It's unprecedented. It's unheard of.
I want to transition this conversation a little bit more into Mountain West talk. Ed, I'm going to start with you. But with UNM's win on Saturday, Utah State win over San Diego State, which was a really good game on Saturday afternoon. This puts those three in a three-way tie up at first place for the Mountain West, with a lot of interesting games coming down the stretch. UNM still plays Utah State twice. They still got to host San Diego State, and Utah State still has to travel to San Diego State. Man, how do you feel like this Mountain West race is kind of starting to shape out? And I mean, I guess in ranking order would you put the top three teams?
You know what? Right now, you mentioned the Lobos have Utah State, Boise State at Grand Canyon next Wednesday, which, that's going to be a very tough game up there in Phoenix. That's going to be a tough one. They're at Nevada. They've got San Diego State here, Colorado State, and then they go to Utah State. So I'm never going to ever put the Lobos below any team, man. Even if I might be a guy that votes with my heart. I still think Tim Miles felt that he was quoting the paper. Tim Miles, the San Jose State coach, who's a fine coach, man, good coach. He's had a lot of injuries, but he thought New Mexico's the most complete team. He said he thought that. So I think they are the most complete team. I do, but they've got and I'm not worried about their challenges. They've met challenges, man. They've met challenges on the road. They haven't really played a bad game since Boise State on the road. 5 games ago? They've been playing pretty darn well. They trust each other. They have confidence in each other. There's not a lot that we mentioned. I'm going to say something that I talked to Phil McDonald today, the former Lobo, and he said when you hear all the Lobos talk, they all sound like Olin. There's not that that swag, and there's nothing wrong with that. He said Albury might have a little bit of it, but they all sound like they took on the personality of their coach, which he's an introverted guy. There's not a lot of bragging and a lot of alpha male stuff. And that's okay that people do the alpha male stuff too. That's okay too, man. There's ways to win. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that that's a good observation by Phil. I thought I had to think about that, and I think he's right. So they're confident in each other, and I think George's point was it's unheard of for these freshmen, Tanette and Hall, to be playing. Phil Smith, George also played pretty well as a freshman. He had redshirted under Norm Ellenberger, and Phil had a heck of a freshman year, man.
Right.
Phil's still a very good friend of mine and one of the best guards I ever saw play here. Dynamite. Right. So, but those two there, I mean, if you look at Hall, what shakes him? Now, if you're and George, you probably agree with this. If I'm warming up, right, we got guys taking quarters off the backboard, slamming, and you look down the court, you see them dudes, right? You're thinking we're going to wax them by 20, man, right? And then by the end of the game, you're down by 30 points, and you wonder what happened. So, yeah, they don't wow you with any. They just beat you by playing smart basketball. That's what they do. So, E, what do you think about that?
No, I want to get George Scott's final thoughts and kind of answering the same question in terms of how this kind of shapes up towards the end, and I mean maybe what you're most looking forward to in tomorrow in Wednesday night's matchup.
Well, as I've said before, and I'm sounding like a broken record, I am pleasantly shocked at how well we are doing this year, considering we've completely turned over the roster. I really, in my heart of heart, thought that it would take us a couple of 3 years for Coach Olin to get his guys in here, to get his system, his culture, his tradition established. And he did it from day one. I mean, I'm just blown away about that because that just doesn't happen. It normally takes coaches, a couple, 3 years to get their culture established. To Ed's point, I don't think we are a physically looking team. If someone saw Jake Hall at the mall, they would not think he is the leading scorer of a Division I men's basketball team, right? You would not think that if you saw him walking around Coronado Mall. I'm just blown away at how consistently he shot the ball. And Bullion, he's a bull. He is truly a bull. That guy's been unstoppable. Albury, as Ed mentioned earlier, I love how he gets in the lane consistently. He's always going downhill. And Luke, the connector, Chol, I've been impressed with him recently, again, that he's driving to the basket and not simply being a 6'9" jump shooter. I think that he needs to continue going to the basket. Uriah, again, just a freak, a freak of a player as a freshman, which we have not seen. And a name we haven't mentioned tonight, JT Rock. He has been great. He has been such a pleasant surprise. I kind of question, how good he was early on, but he is a very good college basketball player, and I am really, really looking forward to see how this season plays out. I think we're going to be just fine going down the stretch just based on our body of work so far.
One last question, Scott, before we get to our guest. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but Scott, if you had to pick one key UNM player to be the X factor in Wednesday night's matchup? Who's that guy?
Ooh, boy, that's tough. Let me think. One guy, probably Jake Hall, to see if he can keep it going. Now, that's a lot of pressure on him. He's a true freshman, but if he can keep it going, if he can keep doing what he's been doing, he's going to be just fine. Bullion is a 23-year-old grown man. He's going to be fine. He played professional basketball. I'm not worried about him, but I think Jake is going to be the X factor. I just hope he doesn't realize that he's a kid. He's a freshman playing a man's game. I don't think he realizes how good he is at this point. So he'd be the one guy I would single out.
Ed, one last question for you. I'm going to pose the same one before we get to our guest. Who's the X factor Wednesday night?
For me, you know what? I think what's one thing we haven't mentioned, Dayton Albury is getting to face his former teammates, man. I'm going to say it's him, the downhill driver. Yeah. You know, and we don't know. Again, he's not come out and said, I can't wait to, no bravado there. He's going to do his job. I think he's a huge key, man, because did you see the angles he played on Saturday night? He's done this all season long. The minute they don't close out on him, boom, see ya. And then as soon as they come to close out, it's looking, passing, dishing, assisting, making a layup, getting to the free throw line, drawing fouls. To me, he's that X factor because, hey, when I look across and see those dudes, I played with these guys for 3 years. No hate. I don't think there's any hate there, but I want to beat their butts, man. And I want to beat him here. So I think he's the X factor.
Right on. George, it's always a pleasure chatting hoops with you, man. We appreciate you jumping on the show as always. I'm sure we'll have you on a couple more times before the season ends. But Ed, always appreciate you and your comments and reaching out to all these former Lobos, man. This wouldn't happen without you. So for Eric Moulton, Ed Nunez, George Scott, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll be joined by Nick Nunez and Patrick Mayhorn. Patrick Mayhorn runs the Ag Ship, which covers Utah State basketball exclusively. So we'll get into more Utah State Chalk Talk in just a minute.
Thanks, George.
This is your year to ring in the deals and ring in the keys to your brand new ride during our Ring in the Savings event at Capital Ford. Like a new 2025 Ford F-250 Super Duty with 0% APR for 60 months. Or a new 2025 Ford Bronco Sport. Just $495 a month lease for 36 months with no money down. This is your year, so drive into 2026 the right way during our Ring in the Savings event at Capital Ford in Santa Fe.
Welcome back to the Pit Press Live. I'm your host, Eric Moulton, and welcoming back to the show the attorney, the lawyer, and a broadcaster on ProView Networks, Nick Nunez. What's up, man? How are you?
Eric, what's up, man? Good to be with you tonight. I always appreciate the intro. Appreciate George Scott and my dad for the breakdown of the San Jose State game. Thought you guys had a great intro to the show, man, and I'm ready to break down some Utah State UNM matchup. Ready to go.
Yes, sir. And joining us, I'm not sure if he's in Utah, but Patrick Mayhorn, who runs the Ag Ship, has been kind enough to join us tonight and talk more in depth Utah State. Patrick, welcome to the Pit Press, man, and thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, what's up, guys? Happy to be here. Happy to talk about the game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
So you guys are coming off a really good game on Saturday, man. I watched that game from tip-off to ending. Man, this Utah State team continues, I think, every other year to just be up in the net rankings and just put up really crazy efficiency scoring metrics, things like that. I mean, what has been kind of the ingredient, the mixture of the guys this year and maybe with the head coach? I mean, what is your kind of impression of the season so far?
Yeah, it's been, I think, sort of an evolution of what they were doing last year in their first year with Jared Calhoun. All of these coaches during this run have taken different approaches. We didn't get to see the second run around with Danny Sprinkle, who only spent a year here, but the second team has usually been building on the first team, learning lessons from the first team. And from playing in the Mountain West, a lot of these coaches have not really, I don't think, known fully what to expect when they come to the league. You don't really, if you're on the East Coast, if you're not out here, you don't know. You don't know what it's going to be like. You don't recognize how physical it's going to be, how difficult it's going to be. And so I think that this team is built to accommodate that. They got more athletic, they got longer, they got just more physical and more prepared for the Mountain West. But a lot of the stuff that they're doing is pretty similar to last year, offensively, especially. Defensively, they still run the matchup zone. It's just it's an upgraded version of it, essentially.
Yeah, well, I'm going to throw out some names to you, just names that we are kind of familiar with that just carried over from last year. Obviously, Mason Falslev is one of the preseason Mountain West Player of the Year. I think he was expected to have that type of season that he's having, and he's definitely delivering. And then you also look at a guy like Carson Templin. He had a really big game against San Diego State, and he's kind of turned it up a notch now as we turn the corner for the second half of Mountain West play. But a newcomer to Utah State, and one guy who has turned a lot of heads and kind of been thrown in the conversation for maybe the dark horse of the Mountain West Player of the Year, in MJ Collins. What can you tell us about MJ Collins and kind of how his game, the element that he brings to the Utah State team, which already had a lot of big time contributors on the roster?
Yeah, Collins was a former blue chipper. He played a little bit at Virginia Tech. He spent 2 years there. He spent last season at Vanderbilt, and he was always a contributor. He was treated sort of as a 3-and-D guy. He has decent size. He's 6'4", 6'5", around that range. He can shoot. He was a very, very good scorer, kind of an on-ball scorer in high school, but his first 3 years of college, he was mostly used off ball. He was mostly used as you screen for him away from the ball. He can shoot some threes, but he wasn't really given too many responsibilities. He wasn't really asked to do too much. He was an energy guy. He would come in and maybe he'd have a really good game and the crowd would get behind him and he would ignite. But a lot of the times he was just kind of there chipping in as he could. And Utah State, I think, saw the potential in him, saw the ability that he has, specifically as an on-ball creator for himself and for others. He has a good handle. He has the ability to get to his spots with or without the ball, and he's always been a good scorer. It's been a matter of confidence for him. It's been a matter of an offense that is built to support him, to get him shots, to get him good looks. He's been slumping a little bit recently. He has regressed a bit from three, and I think that's hurt his overall numbers. But he's learning to accommodate that. He's learning to suit himself within the offense and to sort of, if the shots aren't falling for him, he's starting to make them for others. He's starting to get those looks for others. He's not just trying to force it. But early on in the season, especially when everything was falling, a lot of it was just confidence. He's always had this ability. It was just that nobody really believed in him until this season, and he comes out and the team believes in him, and he's had the year that he's had.
Nick.
We're speaking with Patrick Mayhorn of the Ag Ship. We're previewing UNM men's basketball's matchup against Utah State on Wednesday, 9 p.m. in the pit. Patrick, I wanted to ask you about this Utah State offense. Averages 85.5 points per game, leads the Mountain West. The most impressive statistics to me are their effective field goal percentage. They're 16th in the country. And then just the way they share the basketball. They average 18.2 assists per game, which leads the Mountain West. Just tell us how efficient this Aggie offense is.
Yeah, it's been really good. They operate more in spurts than last year's team did. Last year's offense was more consistent. It was better more consistently. This one's ceiling is higher. When it's on, there's really no good way to slow them down. When they get rolling, they can put up. I mean, they can put 20 points on the board in 4 or 5 minutes, and you can blink and miss it. But they have struggled a little bit more with, there are games where they just don't pass the ball. There are games where they don't have that ball movement, where they don't have off ball movement, where they're just, they just don't look in it. They don't look like they're in the game. And we've seen fewer of those recently. I think that most of the offseason time that they spent was on defense. It was on fixing the defense from last season. I think it was like 65%, 70% to 30%. And so the offense was a little bit less developed coming into the year. It was a little less refined. They've got some young guys playing big roles, but a lot of the ideas are similar to what they were doing last year. There's a ton of pin downs. It's it's going to be pin downs pretty much all game for Falslev, for MJ Collins. They've got Carson Templin playing in a larger role offensively. He's facilitating from the front court. He's starting to do more and more of that, and he's really growing into the role. And the idea behind the offense that Jared Calhoun talks about a lot is finding advantages, creating those advantages, and then sustaining them. And that means one mores. That means, penetrating and then kicking the ball out. That means just whatever the defense is giving you, that's what you're going to take. And then when they adjust, you're going to take the next thing after that. And the spacing has not always been great. The ability to recognize those advantages has not always been great, but the team is growing into it. As long as the point guard play has been good, the offense has followed suit. And it's a really good offense that Jared Calhoun has. He knows his stuff. This is an offense that he's developed over a lot of years with a lot of really good coaches. He worked with Joe Mazzulla, who was one of his assistants at Fairmont State. He's spent a lot of time on this. This offense is his baby, and it works really, really well. It's just a matter of the players executing it, and for the most part they have, but it's never been a talent issue for this team. It's just been figuring out what they're supposed to be doing and understanding their principles and sticking to those.
Yeah, Patrick, I wanted to talk to you about the matchup with UNM's defense. But before we get there, Utah State's offense struggled for a good part of that game against San Diego State. I know they won it 71-66. They played well down the stretch of the second half. But it really seemed like San Diego State's length and switching defense really bothered Utah State early. Kind of took Collins and Falslev out of the game a little bit. Translating kind of what happened with San Diego State to UNM, UNM's defense is similar in a lot of ways in that we pack the paint, we do switch almost everything. We haven't had to guard a lot of pin down screens outside of the Nevada game. But just how do you think Utah State's offense matches up with UNM's defense?
Yeah, I think that the thing is going to be something that we saw that really came to define that San Diego State game in the last 8 minutes specifically. What worked for Utah State, what changed that game was that when they got to the basket, when they got under the free throw line, they stopped just going up with the ball, which you can't do against San Diego State. They're going to block your shot every time. If you just go up without, preparing yourself, if you're not playing off 2 feet, they're going to block your shot. And Utah State had prepared for a week to do that and just didn't do it for 30 minutes. And then in the last 10 minutes, they started doing it. They started playing off 2 feet. They started faking their shots. San Diego State really, really loads heavily to the ball, and they'll just jump. If you fake the shot, they'll just jump pretty much every time. And so Utah State started doing that. They started doing some brush screens. They started doing some more pin downs. The pin downs are always there, but they even went off playbook. Jared Calhoun just drew some stuff up on the sidelines during timeouts. So that those worked pretty consistently. And they were able to get going from there once the ball handler specifically just stopped running into the wall, just stop trying to attack those rim protectors that San Diego State has on the first jump, on the first bounce. They have to play under control. The decision making below the free throw line has to be good, and when it is, this offense is really, really hard to stop because they've got plenty of shooters all over the floor. They've got different skill sets. They've got guys like Adlin Elamine who can do a lot of different things. Mason Falslev, MJ Collins, all these guys can score, they can pass, they can dribble, they can do whatever you need them to do offensively. And that was the difference. It was decision making. It was playing under control and not letting that San Diego State pressure speed you up. I think that the pressure really sped them up for a lot of that game. They had not seen a turnover defense of that caliber. San Diego State's defense is excellent. There are not a ton of defenses that are that good just in college basketball. They're hard to score on. But once they really started to get a feel for it, once they had seen it, I think it took longer than Jared Calhoun would have liked, but down the stretch, they were much more in control. The decision-making was much better, and accordingly, they started scoring more. I would imagine that the approach against New Mexico is going to be pretty similar. It's a matter of playing under control, not letting them speed you up. I know they do full court pressing sometimes. They do traps. They want to create turnovers just like Utah State does, and ball security, decision-making below the free throw line. All of that stuff, it's important in every Mountain West game, but it's especially important in these top tier matchups because all of these defenses are good and disruptive, and they'll cause problems if you don't play under control offensively.
Yeah, Patrick, again, thank you for jumping on the pit press with us, but I want to talk about Carson Templin a little bit, his evolution kind of as role player on last year's roster to maybe more of like an elite type role player, glue guy. Now, I think it's safe to say that he probably had one of the best games in his Utah State career against San Diego State. 18 points, 7 rebounds, drew a lot of attention, but he's not a guy that's going to typically fill it up on the stat sheet like that night in and night out. But against San Diego State, he did, and I think a lot of that was they found success in that mid range because San Diego State does switch a lot on the perimeter. He started slipping some of those screens and was kind of open there in the mid range and was able to contribute, kind of get other guys involved, finish around the basket. Now, what has his evolution from kind of role player to more leader, emotional leader, glue guy? I mean, he kind of fills that void every night for that team. Talk about him and his importance to this year's makeout.
Yeah, Carson has always been the energy guy. He was the energy guy as a freshman, running around, like a madman. The difference for him this season has been that the game is slowing down. You can see it. You can see the way that he plays, that he's more comfortable, that he's reading things ahead of time. He's making anticipation passes. He's not allowing the defense to speed him up. His hands are better. He's stronger. I take pictures at these games on the baseline. And I have pictures from when he was a freshman, and you compare it to what he looks like now. It's like this guy's chiseled from rock at this point, and back then he's just kind of a big guy. He's just a big kid, and he's not that anymore. He's a grown man. He has developed off the floor in the training room. He's watched a lot of tape. He is, I think, one of the biggest of tape watchers on the team. He just loves basketball. He wants to know more about it. Jared Calhoun described him after the game as just curious. He's got a lot of questions. He wants to know more about basketball. He always wants to know more. And you've seen him start to really grasp a lot of those concepts that they've been teaching him this year. He's doing more with post moves. I've joked that it feels like every game he does one new thing that we haven't seen him do before, whether it's a step through, whether it's like the alley-oop that he threw to Adlin Elamine at the end of the San Diego State game, hitting 2 threes in that game. He's just getting better as the season goes on. He's getting more comfortable with the variety of things that he can do. His creating in the high post and the mid-range, as you mentioned, has been really important for the team. Him and Elamine are kind of the zone beaters in that area, but they can do it against man if you're switching a lot too. He was doing short rolls. He's getting a better sense of the technique required to be a big man in the Mountain West and how to stay on the floor and not pick up a bunch of fouls, which was really one of his biggest problems when he was younger. He was just out of control. He was playing on adrenaline and not really thinking about what he was doing, just doing it. And now he's not doing that so much. Now he knows what he's supposed to be doing. He knows where the next advantage is. He's doing it on both sides of the ball. He has court awareness. He has the vision of a veteran at this point because he's in his 3rd year of playing. His shot has improved. That's been very helpful. But I think that the biggest thing is mental for him. I think it's just that he's seen it at this point. He's felt it. He understands what it means to play in these games, and he's preparing himself appropriately for all of these. He watches, like I said, as much tape as anybody on the team, and it's been really cool to see the way that he has stepped up. He was he was one of the veterans early on in the year who Calhoun challenged to step into a larger leadership role, and I think he's very clearly done it. I mean, every huddle you see him talking, every timeout he's the vocal guy. That's not really Mason Falslev's style, and so they needed somebody else to step into that, and Templin's been the one to do it. I think that it's a role that he really enjoys. I think it's one that he's finding a lot of he's finding it very rewarding as this season goes on, and he's getting more comfortable with it. It's been really fun to watch his development.
Yeah, I have one more question, then I'll hand it back over to Nick. But on the flip side of that, on like the experience, the senior leadership, the guy that Calhoun is going to challenge in the locker room to carry that leadership torch, Adlin Elamine, he comes in as a freshman. I'm not sure how tall he is, 6'8", 6'9".
6'9", 6'10", somewhere
6'9". I mean, but he's got a well-rounded game, right? He can shoot from the outside. He does finish inside. He's a little bit of a high flyer, kind of turning a lot of heads in the Mountain West as maybe a potential freshman of the year. At this point, I think it's kind of hard to rip away from Jake Hall at this point, just because of what Jake Hall has been able to do. But he's kind of lived in that shadow for a little bit. But coming down this stretch, he's actually kind of a key component to this offense and kind of a spark off the bench. Can you talk about Elamine's game and kind of what he means to this rotation?
Yeah, he just keeps getting better. As the season has gone on, he just keeps improving. He started the year as one of the last guys off the bench. He was playing, but he wasn't playing a ton. He didn't know what he was doing. He looked just like you could see the potential. He would flash it in spots. He would throw down a big dunk or something, but he didn't know what he was doing. He was a freshman. He was just running around out there kind of trying to figure it out as he went. But the talent has never been the question with him. I think that a big benefit for him and something that we, kind of saw contribute to his early playing time was that he played on a really, really good prep team out in DC. He was not the star of the team. He understands that role. He understands being somebody who's just going to chip in wherever the team needs him to. He doesn't have to be the number one guy. He doesn't have experience being the number one guy. He wasn't that. There was a 5-star point guard. I can't remember which one it was. I want to say Jordan Smith, who he played with in high school. And he played off of him. He played as a complementary piece there. And so he knows how to do that. He came to Utah State with that knowledge. His brother played high level basketball. There's a coach on staff who coached his brother back in the day. That's the connection that brought him here. And he understands the process of how you develop. He understands that you can't skip those steps when you're doing it. And when you're talking about a guy who understands that, who has that grounding as a freshman, who's also 6'9" with the ability to shoot threes and a 7'2" wingspan and athleticism to jump out of the gym. I mean, that's a guy who's going to explode as the season goes on. That's a guy who's going to get better as he learns more and more, as he gets more comfortable. I think he's going to be one of the best players on the team by the end of the season. I really do. I think it's going to be him right up there with Falslev and Collins and Templin. He has been outstanding. The last month specifically, really since conference play started, when he moved into the starting lineup, his defense is very good. He's one of the best rebounders on the team despite his slight frame. He's hitting more shots. He's doing more offensively. His cutting is really good. Spacing wise, it's not always great. He doesn't know exactly where he's supposed to be all the time still, but talent wise, I mean, there's nobody else on the team like him. He's an NBA player. He's going to be in the NBA, I think, sooner than later. He's a different kind of guy out there.
Hey, Patrick, wanted to switch gears and talk to you a little bit about how Utah State may defend Jake Hall. Jake Hall, the 2-time Mountain West Freshman of the Week, coming off a season-high 27 points on 7 of 9 shooting from 3 against San Jose State. He's found ways to score against different types of defenses, different types of physical defenders. How do you think the Aggies defend Jake Hall?
Yeah, it's interesting because they haven't played, off the top of my head, they haven't played a ton of true sharpshooters. They haven't played. They've seen some. Everybody in the conference has a couple guys who can really shoot threes, but there's not a ton of Jake Halls out there. The freshman class in general at New Mexico, I loved them coming in, and I've been delighted to see how well they've played. Like Uriah Tennant was one of my favorite guys coming into the Mountain West this past year, and he's been great. Hall's been great. The matchup zone that Utah State runs, the idea is to prevent paint touches, to prevent kickouts, because you're not letting the ball in there to begin with. And you can then extend that pressure to try and take away, if there's a specific 3-point shooter, a specific guy who's really going to cause you problems, you can extend that pressure. You can try and double him and you can trap him. You can force him to beat you as a ball handler and limit his outlets as a passer, try to isolate him that way. The easier way, the more reliable way that we have seen this season for opposing guards to beat Utah State has been off the dribble. Dribble jumpers or attacking the rim. If you can penetrate the paint as an individual, winning those matchups one-on-one, then that's been the way to score. And so I'm curious to see what he does. I'm curious to see how New Mexico tries to use him, because I don't know that I don't know that he's going to win a ton of one-on-one matchups with Mason Falslev off the dribble. I don't know if that's something that New Mexico would ask him to do. There aren't a lot of guys in the Mountain West who do that. It's hard to do. He's a hard guy to get past. Same with Collins. Same with Drake Allen. Those are long, athletic guards. And so the question is going to be, I think, a lot of scouting responsibility. It's going to be remembering your assignment, remembering that this guy's green. Anywhere on the floor, you have to guard him. If he's inside the half-court line, you need to know where he is, and you need to be closing out. You need to be inching out on him. He's not somebody you can leave. If somebody has to help, it can't be whoever's responsible for Hall in the zone. And Utah State has had trouble with that at times. They've had trouble with sticking to whatever the scout said and remembering who your green shooters are. I don't think that they're going to forget with him. I think everybody in the conference knows exactly what Jake Hall can do, but that's going to be the biggest question is those inch outs is going to be, gap discipline defensively and just making sure that wherever he goes, somebody is right there who can close out right away and try to force him to win those matchups one-on-one. Cause you leave him open, you're asking for trouble.
We're going to go to some comments here. Again, we're speaking with Patrick Mayhorn of the Ag Ship. We see a comment here. You feel better about a game in the 60s or in the 80s for this one, Patrick?
It's tough because these are both very capable offenses. These are offenses with a lot of firepower, but I think with how good these turnover defenses are and how well the defenses have played in general, and just the flow that we've seen in a lot of Mountain West games, I think 60s is more likely than 80s. I don't know that there would be enough possessions. I don't know that there would be enough mistakes from either team for there to be, up in the 80s. Like these are good defenses, and I would feel I don't want to disrespect the quality of these defenses by expecting an 80-point game, even if that does then maybe diminish the offenses. Like the offenses are very good, but these defenses, it's hard to score 80 points on these guys. It's most teams don't do it, even if you have a really good offense. So I would lean closer to 60s than 80s.
Yeah, Patrick, are you making your way to the pit for the game on Wednesday?
I'm not. I wish I was. I should have thought about it before the season that this might be the last chance that I get for a little while, which I hate. I hate that that's a possibility. It's there's no reason for that to be the case. These teams should play every year. Yeah. So I wish I was, but I'm not. I'm going to be watching it up here from Idaho.
Sure. Last question for me, Patrick, then I'll kick it back to Eric. But, Utah State coming into a hostile environment here. Obviously, we have tons of respect for the Spectrum and the Herd. But Utah State coming in a hostile environment. They played in a hostile environment at Grand Canyon and lost by 10 earlier. Do you think the crowd affected them there? And do you think the pit crowd could affect them here on Wednesday?
Yeah, I think that the combination of the crowd at Grand Canyon and the road whistle, which is just, you're going to have to deal with it in the Mountain West. It's part of the deal. They didn't deal with it in that game. They did not handle it well. They did not respond well. They started to hunt fouls rather than just playing, which has been a tendency for this offense at times. They have gotten frustrated with not getting calls, and they have tried to seek them out, which is not the way to get calls. I can't blame officials for not giving you calls when you do that, because they know you're doing it. They can see that you're not really trying to play basketball. You're trying to get to the free throw line. And that's going to be the question. I think it's not, I don't think it's a matter of losing composure in the big crowds and the loud noise. They've heard noise. They've heard crowds. They've seen, they've played on the road in good crowds. They've played at home in great crowds. It's playing in the pit is extremely difficult. There's a reason that very, very, very few teams win there. But I think that the bigger question will be how they handle frustration moments, how they handle things not going their way, which will happen. There will be times when they fall back into a deficit. There will be times when they have to try and overcome their own mistakes, when they have a couple turnovers, whatever it might be. And if they stick to their principles, if they can face the pressure of those moments, then I think that they'll be fine. But the question is going to be how they handle those frustrations. If they go into a shell and try to hunt one-on-one matchups and just go and try to get to the free throw line, that's not how this offense works. It's not the way that it's designed to work. It doesn't work when they do it. That's going to be the tell, is if they stick to their principles in those moments, or if you start to see more Mason Falslev ISO ball, more MJ Collins ISO ball. Anytime this offense is running ISO ball, it's a sign that the offense is not working the way that it's supposed to. And I think that that's going to be the biggest thing that happens more on the road than it does at home. At home, they don't usually go into that shell, at least not for very long. I think it's more possible to get them there on the road.
Yep. Patrick, I do want to talk about kind of maybe a little bit of the elephant in the room topic or question. Obviously, you're very familiar with Dayton Albury, right? He played for Utah State last year. You're more than familiar with his game, what he kind of brings, and he's playing a little bit different of a role this year for Olin's team. I think he's more of the primary ball handler, but I thought it was interesting when you were talking about how Calhoun's defense and the scheme and how they want to prevent the paint touches and how Utah State has kind of struggled throughout the season with kind of defending those guards that can get into the paint. Well, that's exactly what Dayton Albury can do. He's the guy, beat you off the dribble, get to the rim, slice. He's extremely athletic, and he's just got that second gear that not a lot of players have. One, can you kind of describe the difference in role that maybe he played last year to what you're seeing out of him this year? And then two, how concerned are you about playing that type of player that you just kind of thought that might be a risky kind of deal for Utah State on Wednesday?
Yeah, so Dayton was one of my favorites last year. I was so sad to see him go. It seemed like he was going to come back. He decided he wanted a starting role. I don't think there's hard feelings. You know, Carson Templin said after the game that he's excited to see him. You know, you can't wait to see Dayton down in Albuquerque. These guys still like each other. There's no hard feelings there. It's his last year. He wanted to start. He wanted a bigger role. I don't think anybody blames him. Last year, he was the change of pace from Drake Allen. Drake Allen was the starting point guard, a little bit of a slower. I mean, Drake is not slow by any means, but everybody's slow compared to Dayton. You know, him and Jalen House are the two who I can think of that move that fast on the basketball court. That's the comparison that Jared Calhoun brought up to me when we were talking last offseason before seeing Dayton play, was like that level of speed. And so Drake would be the kind of steadier distributor, and then they would bring Dayton in, and usually what he would do is kind of what he's doing now, which is that he would just run past you and he would score at the basket, and he would do it over and over and over, and then he would run you down on defense, and he would take the ball, and then he would score again. And it's an extremely fun style of basketball to watch, as I'm sure you both can attest to. He's a lot of fun. And I think that's been the biggest change, is just the amount that he's being asked to carry. He's the lead guard now, but his play style, I mean, he talked about this. I don't know if he's talked about it much this year. I haven't listened to, a ton of Dayton Albury this season, but last year he talked about how growing up in the Bahamas, that was the style that they played, was fast breaks all the time. Everything was running. It was up and down the floor, just constant running. And so he knows that. That's his way of playing. And I don't think that it wouldn't make sense to have him if you were going to ask him to do anything else. That's what he does. He beats you to the rim. He beats everybody to the rim. He beats them to the basket. He can jump, he can run, he can score at the rim, he can play defense, he can do everything. He's an awesome player. The question for Utah State is going to be, keeping him in front as much as you possibly can, not asking your inside guys, your bigs to have to help too much, because if you're letting him get to the rim a ton, you're having those bigs have to rotate over. One, you're opening yourself up for potential offensive rebounds if you do contest the shot well. And two, I think more importantly for this defense at Utah State specifically, you're putting those guys in a really bad position where they're probably going to foul. And these bigs have had fouling trouble all year. And the only real way to help them with that is to not put them in that situation. And Dayton Albury puts you in that situation a lot. And so walling up on him, having that off-ball help on the perimeter rather than asking your centers to do it, trying to stop him from getting there, forcing him into maybe some mid-range jumpers rather than letting him get all the way to the paint. And then I think that the other one, kind of the key more off the bench, the secret weapon for Utah State, kind of twofold, but mostly just Colby King. Elijah Perryman can do it some as well. That's the backup guard pairing is him and Colby King, but Colby King was brought in as the Albury replacement. The idea I kind of said in the offseason as well, if you can't get Dayton Albury's speed, if you can't get that just massive outlier, then you get verticality as an outlier. And Colby King's one of the best jumpers in the conference. He's one of the best perimeter rebounders in the conference. I don't think he has Dayton Albury speed, but he's not that far away. He's the closest on this team. He's the fastest guy on the team. And he is usually his job as, when he goes into the game beyond scoring, which he can do, is that he's the cool down guy defensively. You put him on whoever you need to slow down and he'll do it. He'll run them down. I'm fascinated to see that matchup. I think that's going to be just wonderful basketball to watch him, go against Dayton Albury. I would guess that's going to be a matchup that they go to a lot as this game goes on. I don't think that Drake Allen is fast enough to keep up with him. He might be able to stay in front of him and just wall him off. But if you're looking for athleticism, guys who can maybe just just try to keep him from going right past you. Maybe try to compete in that foot race. I think Colby King is close enough that he can win some of them. He won't win all of them. There's no way to do it against Dayton Albury, but Colby King and Elijah Perryman, when those guys come in to be sort of the energy unit off the bench, they're the steel guys. Them and Falslev and Allen, they all do it. But King versus Albury is going to be a ton of fun in the minutes that we get, and I think we're going to get a decent number of them.
That's interesting, man. And I got one more before I give it back to Nick. But earlier in the show, you talked about how Uriah Turnett was one of your favorite new additions to the Mountain West. Well, for this roster, you just touched on it, how those guys were kind of the energy off the bench. Well, Uriah Turnett is the energy off the bench for UNM, and he kind of always checks in right around that 15-minute mark or kind of right after that first media timeout, and just instant energy, a guy that can go baseline to baseline just as fast as Dayton. Not as strong, but just a ton of athleticism, kind of finishing above the rim at times. But he's got a little bit better of an outside shot and an outside mid-range game. Talk about why maybe you were excited to see him kind of come into the Mountain West. And it sounds to me like you had kind of maybe more inside information on his game prior to him even joining the Mountain West.
It's funny you asked. I was wondering if you might, because then I can expand on this. So last March, I don't know if you all would remember this, but there were some rumors surrounding Utah State's head coach potentially going to get another job, as there are every March. I've covered this team. This is my 4th season now. I've not had a single March where there weren't rumors of that or where the coach didn't leave. This was my first off season without the coach actually leaving. And so I was doing some prep on potential candidates. I was writing up a list of guys who could be considered, and Eric Olin was the top name on my list. And so I was looking at his UC San Diego class. I was looking at guys who he had on the roster. I was looking at recruits he had coming in, and I spent probably, I think I lost a day, if I remember right, just watching Tennant play and watching Jake Hall play, watching these guys who he had been recruiting. Seeing what they could do and trying to get a grasp of what the roster might look like if Jared Calhoun ended up leaving for the West Virginia job. He didn't do it, and so that story got buried. But I had watched a lot of Uriah Tennant, and I was, trying to understand what he was looking for, and he was a guy who just jumped out to me. I mean, there are the clips of him dunking. There are, just freakish plays for this guy who's 5'10", 5'11", somewhere in that range. He's a monster athlete. He is just incredibly gifted in the way that he moves. He has that speed. He has that verticality. I loved his game coming out of high school, and I thought that he was, he would have been a ridiculous pull at UC San Diego. I think at New Mexico, he's a little bit better suited to the talent, but even then, this is a high-level player, and he's one of several freshmen on this team who have made a big impact. He's awesome. I loved his game coming out of high school. I think that Utah State got itself a very good freshman point guard as well, and Elijah Perryman. But Uriah Tennant, it was all there with him. The stats were there, the tape was there. I was shocked he didn't get more attention. I think he got overlooked for his size, but his game is it's hard to question. He was outstanding.
Yeah, Nick.
Patrick, it's been great talking to you, man. And all of our followers, go give Patrick Mayhorn a follow at the Ag Ship. You can see his X handle at the bottom icon on the left part of his screen. But Patrick, I guess the last question for me, man, do you think the Aggies get the win at the Pit, break UNM's 23-game home winning streak, or do you think the Lobos come out on top?
I still have to I have to dive into all the numbers. I do, probably more research than I should time-wise for these previews. And so probably by Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, I'll have a better sense for what I'm expecting. But just off the rip, from what I know about these two teams, what I know about games in that building, I can't in good conscience pick Utah State to win there. That's just, it's hard to do. It's really, really hard to win in the Pit. And I think these are two very evenly matched teams. I think that these are, probably the two best teams in the conference. I know San Diego State's right there as well, but current health conditions for that team, considered, it's these two right now until Harrington and Guath are healthy for San Diego State. And usually, almost always in the Mountain West, when we're talking about two top teams, what's going to happen is that you're going to win at home and lose on the road. And I would say the same when New Mexico comes to the Spectrum at the end of the season. I think New Mexico wins this one, and then Utah State gets that one back in March. But it's really hard to win on the road in this conference. It's really hard to win in that building, and when you're playing a top team like this, it's that much harder. I was surprised at how close Utah State got in the pit last year after the way that it went in Logan. I don't know if I have a score right now, but I think that New Mexico probably wins a tight one, and then Utah State gets it back at the end of the season.
One more from me, Patrick. Three-way tie for first place in the Mountain West: UNM, Utah State, and San Diego State. UNM still has to go to the Spectrum, like you mentioned. Utah State still has to go to Viejas, if I'm not mistaken. If you had to pick now, who do you think wins the Mountain West, man, down the stretch?
Oh gosh. I think it probably depends on the further development of all of these freshmen. These teams are all playing a lot of freshmen. Utah State's got 2 of them. San Diego State's got several. New Mexico obviously has several. Whichever of the 3 teams the freshmen continue to develop the most is probably going to be the one that wins it. I think that schedule-wise, I haven't looked at all 3 of their schedules in great detail, but from what I've gathered from people talking about it, it seems like New Mexico's is the most favorable down the stretch based on where they still have to go. Again, I don't know that personally. That's what I've seen people saying. I'm inclined to believe them. But I think that the development of those freshmen is going to be one of the things that dictates it. I am very curious because I think that Utah State has probably the most established veteran core of the 3. San Diego State has Miles Byrd. I don't love Miles Bird's game still. I know he's a great defender, but I don't see it with him offensively. I don't know what everybody sees with him offensively necessarily. But schedule-wise, I think it's New Mexico. I think that talent-wise, veteran talent-wise specifically, I would give the edge to Utah State. You've got a 6th-year point guard. You've got seniors at every spot. You've got 9 guys who could probably start for most teams in this conference. Not, the top 3 or 4, but you give them to UNLV would be really happy to have them. You give them to Wyoming would be happy to have them. Teams like that, San Jose State, Fresno State. So I would go between one of those 2. I don't know if I could pick one right now because I just don't know health-wise what it's going to look like. I don't know what these freshmen are going to develop into. If Adlin ends up being one of the 3 or 4 best players on the team for Utah State by the end of the year, that makes a difference. If Jake Hall and Tennant and these guys continue to develop for New Mexico, that makes a difference. I think it'll be one of these 2 teams that's playing this game. I don't think that San Diego State's going to do it, but I don't know if I could split them right now.
Really appreciate your perspective, Patrick. And for our viewers, listeners, followers, can you tell them how they can find you, how they can find your content? I know that you just published or announced that you're going to be releasing some more Mountain West coverage free on your site. How do our followers find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at the Agship, AGGSHIP, and on the internet at it's just www.theagship.com. We're doing the March Madness special, which I do whenever Utah State is in the hunt, which they have been every year. I've been doing this at this point, so I just do it every year now, which is free coverage through the end of the Mountain West tournament. So if people are interested, they want more coverage of it's Utah State specifically. But if you want to know more about Utah State, what Utah State has going on, go on over there. Go to the Twitter page. The link for that discount is pinned on the Twitter account. So those are the main places. I'm on Instagram as well at the Agship if you're interested in the game photos. But that's where I'm at.
Well, we appreciate you having you on. Nick, any final thoughts, or Patrick, do you have any final thoughts on the game? And before we let everyone loose.
I think I'm good. I've gotten on the soapbox about this needing to continue to be a matchup that they play every year. I hope that that's the case. I would love to see this as a non-conference rivalry. I would really love to see it as a conference rivalry. But until that happens in 5 or 10 years, if we're following the path of all the realignments that have happened in this region of the country over 60, 70 years, eventually they'll be in there. I want it to be right now. I want New Mexico there. I think that New Mexico belongs every bit as much as Utah State or Boise State or Colorado State or any of these teams in the Pac-12. It's not going to feel right without them. But until that point, these teams need to play, and I want to see it every year. I don't think that there's any reason for this rivalry to stop. It's a great series. There's a lot of mutual respect. There's a lot of history. I just that's my parting thought. I want to see this game every year. There's no reason for it to not be played, and I hope that we can see it.
Nick.
No, I echo the same thing, Patrick. We're really going to miss playing Utah State, and I agree. We should try to make this a non-conference game. Quad 1, quad 2 opportunity for both teams. So really great having you on, man. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yep, appreciate you guys.
Thank you, and that'll do it for another live show on the Pit Press Live. For Eric Moulton, Nick Nunez, Patrick Mayhorn with the Ag Shep. We appreciate you guys tuning in to another episode of the Pit Press Live. Nick just released a new article. It's on our website. We'll be sharing it on Twitter, Facebook, anywhere you can find us. It's pitpressnm.com. Preview UNM and Utah State. Everyone have a nice night. We'll talk to you soon.